Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features X Factor number 88, cover dated March 1993. So the cover features a brand new character. This is the first appearance of Random. In the early 90s, Marvel went to great bother to create, or have created for them, maybe that's the better way to put it, new characters, many of whom are now well forgotten. But Random did make a bit of a splash at the time, primarily because his designer and the first issues in which he appeared were drawn by Joe Quesada, who was a popular artist at the time and became even more popular thereafter. And we will see as we get into this issue what kinds of things are revealed about Random, including the fact that he is a mutant and he's got the power that seems to derive somewhat from the T-1000 in Terminator 2, a movie that came out in 1991, of being able to shape his body, in particular his arms, into weapons, such as we see here on the cover, these double barrel barrels that are launching blasts at whoever Random is firing at, and we'll find out who that is in the issue inside. So poor old strong guy there has come the worse off in an initial tussle with Random. Let's open this one up. Oh, one last thing to say is the Joe Quesada pencils are inked by Milgrom. And I do think that Milgrom is a hit and miss inker in terms of his pairings with certain kinds of pencilers. But I do think that he worked well over Larry Stroman and also over Joe Quesada. Let's open this one up now to the splash page. And you can see that it is a close-up on Random's face as he's chewing that cigar. And we have reflected in his glasses a police officer. So the police officer is saying, let's get this straight. The mayor may have panicked and called you in because he saw your ads, Mr. Mutant Hunter. But that don't mean I'm clapping my hands for joy. What we got here is a situation. I'm not looking to see any random violence. So that's our cover caption, and that's the title of this particular story. Action with an Attitude from creators Peter David Ryder, Joe Quesada penciler, Milgrom inker, Ariana Lenchkov, I think is her surname, the colorist, Richard Starkings on letters, and there you go. Now, the surprise will turn out to be, as it was for me at the time when I picked up this issue, coming directly after the famous and really classic now issue 87, the psychotherapy issue, where all the members of X Factor had an interview with Dr. Leonard Sampson in terms of their feelings and emotions after recent upsets and team missions. And so Joe Quesada is now the regular penciler, but already on his second issue as regular penciler, he cannot get a full 22 pages out. So we have this particular issue divided into two chapters. Chapter 1, Random Violence, is 14 pages with art by Quesada, and we'll see in due course what the remaining 8 pages of the second chapter are about. So the officer here says, you follow me, Random, and he says, like a trail of manure. So what's interesting is the fact that Random is a mutant hunter calls back to the original cover for the X Factor title, when it was the original X-Men that were posing as mutant hunters for the government, even though of course they had a different agenda entirely. So let's continue. By the way, what I really like the art here. I like the spotting of blacks. I like the ink rendering of Random's stubble as well, and the little details of the cracks in his teeth too. It's all very well done. So we turn the page and we see that we have a TV news reporter who gives us, by virtue of her dialogue, a context for what's going on here in that splash page. She says, and the situation is escalating rapidly here at Cedars-Sinai Hospital in upstate New York. Local authorities have summoned an individual who calls himself Random, who works out of Albany, to deal with the renegade expatriates. They've taken over the emergency ward, reportedly demanding treatment for one of their number. That was Taylor. He was beaten up in Central Park, remember, in issue 84. 83 rather, before the interruption of Executioner's song. So she continues and says that one of their members was seen brutally beaten on a nationally broadcast videotape. And then we're into the dialogue between the officer and Random, where Random tells him, when the officer says, now look, wise guy, he says, no, you look. And then he says, if you think you boys can handle it, then you all go right ahead. Whip those guns out and do it. And then there's a big problem. So this officer says, our guns, what is it, McMurphy? They just rusted away. And Random says, oh, they're just terrified of you, Sheriff, as he pulls out his sidearm and the pistol is all rusted away, just as we've heard. And then this is an interesting panel here where we continue to see the officer's eyes reflected in Random's sunglasses. It's a little bit confusing initially, but once you figure it out, you understand that Random is looking at the officer directly in the eyes, and he says, how's about if I take a whack at him? And he throws away the stogie there. Interesting storytelling from Joe Quesada. Maybe one of the reasons that he was so slow as an artist was because his storytelling is very, very thoughtful. His layouts are sometimes intricate and clever. Always they work and they're interesting, but it must have taken him a lot of time, so that he wasn't able to put out very often a full issue per month over a long period of time without someone coming in as a fill-in artist. So here we've got an open border panel here as Random walks into the hospital, and we get to see what we saw on the cover, the transformation of his forearm into a 3-barrel cannon. And the police officer says, they're your own kind, Random. So now we know he's a mutant. Why should we trust you? And Random replies, you arrest normal humans, noids, I call them, your own kind. Why trust you? Besides, take a thief to catch a thief, and it takes a mutant to catch a mutant, don't it? So we get a good look at his character design here, and it's very early 90s, of course. We've got the tattoos there, we've got the barbed wire upper armband that he's wearing to show just how tough he is. He's got the jeans, all of it, and it's intriguing, isn't it? Very of the time, but you know, I don't think it looks naff from the vantage point of 2025. It looks like an early 90s character design, but it's fine. I think it stands up to this day. So then we have X Factor landing, and we have a little bit of dialogue there, and Havoc is talking to Val Cooper, and he's saying to her, I'm still not thrilled. You gave Pietro time off without consulting me. And she says, it was my call, Havoc, live with it. So we're going to see what that was all about in the second chapter of this issue. Rain says to Strong Guy, does Val seem a bit odd to you lately, Guido? And he replies, sure, kid. Maybe she's been replaced by an evil duplicate, huh? And that's a callback to the end of the previous issue, issue 87, where it seems like an evil duplicate does possess Val Cooper. So we see there with the way that Quesada has rendered her here in the foreground of the panel, where most of her face is in silhouette, that it does look sinister, it does look ominous. But Strong Guy says to Rain, relax, she's just stressed, that's all. So let's continue here. We are back at the hospital. Random blows open that door, enters here. So we get a cool anchor image of him, and he says, all right, expatriates, you can come in peace or in pieces. Makes no difference to me. And I like the detail that there are no exclamation points here. You know, this is long after the era of Stan Lee being editor-in-chief, so not everyone's yelling all the time. And it kind of conveys to us how calm and how relaxed Random is. He really feels in charge. He doesn't feel threatened at all by whatever the expatriates might throw at him. Here's Lucas, one of the expatriates in question, and he responds to Random, and you, intruder, won't make any difference to us, once I... And then he discovers it's not possible. I'm not reading your mind. I can't draw images to shapeshift into. So, we're learning about Random. He's got this body morphing power. He's super confident, and some way or somehow he's got mental defenses as well, such as Lucas can't read them. And then he levels that massive arm cannon at Lucas. But look at this in the background. These swirls, who do they represent? Well, they represent the arrival of Pirouette here, Jo Beth. And so she thinks she can handle Random. And he says to her, think so, Windy. Well, looky here. I'm generating a whirlwind that goes in the opposite direction to yours. So he knocks, having generated that whirlwind, he knocks her to the ground. And again, readers are wondering, what exactly are his powers? So he deals with the expatriates easily. Here comes their leader, what's his name again? I just can't remember for the moment. I'm sure we'll get it mentioned shortly. We're not leaving until Taylor is out of danger, he says. And Random levels those arm cannons at him again and says, you're going to have more danger than you know what to do with. And you can forget your rusting trick. This weapon ain't metal. It's all me. So he shoots from it these stakes that go either side of this expatriate's head. And Jo Beth here gets enraged. Leave us alone, she exclaims. All we wanted was freedom. Why was that too much to ask? So she attacks him with her hands, rakes his back. You scratched me, he says. Now he's enraged. That's what I get for going easy on you, Windy. So he smashes her into the ground. He's no gentleman. That's what we take away from that. And now once again, those glasses, Quesada using them for these visual devices, and we see massive grinning teeth in them. And who does it turn out to be? Turns out to be Strong Guy. So now we're into the inspiration for the cover, the fight between Random and Strong Guy, but we know that Random's going to get the better of him. Strong Guy says, oh, you blew it, cousin. Blew it big time. So a massive anchor image there as Strong Guy unleashes a left hook at Random. But look at what happens. This is really visually interesting, where Random's face turns into these tendrils, kind of disgusting looking, and it shocks Guido. Oh, yuck, he says. So Random lands on the ground and trips Strong Guy with his foot, and now he's getting up from the ground and leveling those massive hand cannons at Strong Guy again. He says, you don't understand cuisine. He's mocking what Strong Guy said on this particular page when he called him cousin. I'm the kind of guy who goes with the flow. So now that's giving us more of a sense of what Random's powers might be. That his powers allow him to adapt to whatever threat comes his way, whatever danger, in order to preserve himself. That's more or less where we're at in terms of trying to infer what his powers might be. And Guido asks, what are you, a shapeshifter? Random replies, when needs be, I'm all things to all people. I'm Random and you're toast. But we know for a Marvel Comics character to be truly a Marvel Comics character, there's got to be a weakness, there's got to be an Achilles heel. So we got to be on the lookout for what that might be in respect of Random. Well, here arrives the cavalry in the form of the rest of the team. So again, another pretty cool anchor image there. We've got Polaris arriving, and she exclaims, stop right there. So Random's taken by surprise. What did they do? Ship you guys in by the carton like Godiva chocolates, he jokes. And Polaris says, Havoc, my magnetism isn't affecting that weapon of his at all. So Havoc takes charge. Wolfsbane, multiple man flank, right and left, take him. So Wolfsbane leaps. This is a very cool image of her leaping there. She's really leaned into her lupine or wolven form. He's taken Havoc, she exclaims. But this is another surprise. So Random unleashes a high-pitched whistle that drives Rain crazy and stops her in her tracks. And that gets multiple man's goat. What did you do to her? He exclaims. Really great expressions on their faces as well. Good acting in Joe Quesada's drawings of the characters. Random here unleashes a disc, it looks like. at Multiple Man, catching him on the leg. Whistled a tune only she could hear, he says. But for you, Multiple Mange, I don't need to get so all-fired fancy. So he knocks him over, injures him, and Multiple Man calls out, Havoc, I'm okay, get him. And Random replies confidently again, yeah, by all means, Havoc, get me. Start tossing your plasma blasts around in the hospital. The patients in intensive care will love you for it. Look, guys, he says, I'm just a working stiff. I don't give a flying fig Newton about the expatriates, but I'm getting $2,000 to gift wrap them for the local brass. No way I'm walking away from a paycheck. And then he turns around, he swings around at Havoc, who's coming up behind him, reaching into his jacket. Whoop, he exclaims, better take that hand out real slow like, Havoc. And here comes a funny twist in the story. Let's turn the page. Havoc pulls out a checkbook. Believe it or not, Random, we're working stiffs too. I think we can come to some accord. So he writes out a check for $4,000. Here, $4,000, he says, drawn on X Factor's T&E account. We take the expatriates, you take a hike, he says. And Random, he takes the check and he's done. Pleasure doing business with you, he concludes. Nice to know that. Just cause y'all working for the government doesn't mean you're willing to chisel someone out of a legitimate job. By the way, I'd have settled for 3,000, and Havoc says I'd have gone as high as five. So there you go. That's all that's sorted. That's our introduction to Random. He's a mercenary. So that's what we can conclude. And his powers are such that they will randomly flow against whatever threats he faces. But like I said earlier, what's his Achilles heel? What could it be? So here we go. We have the expatriates pulling themselves up off the ground and taking stock. And the leader says, I question your ethics in this matter, Havoc. Checkbook heroism. Havoc replies, what was I supposed to do? Risk leveling the hospital, hundreds of injuries or deaths just to beat him up? The man had a legit grievance, Prodigal. That's his name. I settled it. You're the idiot who got us into this fix in the first place. Where do you get off running away like that, endangering the people in this hospital? And Prodigal replies, I did what I felt necessary. Welcome to the club, Havoc counters. And he says then, because remember, Havoc made a promise to Val that he would take responsibility for letting the expatriates out into Manhattan and that nothing would happen. So Prodigal and the expatriates burned him on that. And here he is, he's saying now, I'm done pussyfooting with you people. Give me any more grief. Your butt is grass and I'm a lawnmower, clear? So Prodigal concurs, he's completely clear. So they're aboard the X Factor government supplied jet, and Taylor, who was the victim of that baseball bat beating in Central Park, asks Prodigal what's going on. They're going home. They're going to Genosha. That was the way that things were about to go at the end of issue 83, before the interruption of Executioner's Song. And Prodigal here thinks that Havoc is sincere, that he trusts him as much as anyone. And further back in the craft, Havoc is having a conversation with Val. Val, I appreciate your support, he says, especially since you fought the idea of us going to Genosha previously. And she says, what can I say, Alex? People change. And of course, in the background is the whole question of what creature has maybe taken possession of Val at the end of the previous issue, issue 87. And then we get more interesting characterization in respect of Rain. So she's there asking Jamie what he's reading. He says, Stolen Away. It's about the kidnapping of the Lindbergh baby. Rain says, poor Tyke, have they found the wee one yet? Not yet, no, says Madrox. Pity, she says, is your leg okay? Turn the page. When he shot you, I thought it wasn't a real bullet, says Multiple Man. I don't know what it was, mostly caused surface damage. Besides, when one body suffers injury and then merges back with the rest, it kind of absorbs the hurt. There's not even a mark now. Well, that's a relief, she says, and she's smiling, and then she starts leaning over to him. I wouldn't want to see you hurt, she says. You're the closest to my age on the team after all, Jamie. And then I really like this detail from Richard Starkings with the lettering where we've got a heart-shaped speech balloon and the little hearts in there as well. I care about you, you know, she says, and touches his knee. So that gets him all agitated and surprised. He jumps up, bangs his head off the off the ceiling above him, and he makes his way comically away from her. I just got to hit the multiple men's room, he says, and he wants to talk to Lorna. What's up? And she asks him, what's up with Rain? She make a pass at you or something? Come on, Jamie, smile. I was just making a joke. Oh, wait, don't tell me she really did. So Lorna says, oh boy, here we go again. And Jamie goes up to Havoc and Val in order to tell them what's been going on. They think he's kidding. He says, hey, you notice I don't pull jokes on Rain? It'd be like mugging a hairy smurf. Besides, I draw the line at lying about teammates. I swear, the way she was rubbing her hand against me, I mean, I'm not Mr. Experience like Guido is. And then Guido says, as he does his little tapestry work, darn straight. But even I could tell there was something going on. So this is an interesting three-quarter profile close-up on Havoc's face. You can see the distinctive way that Quesada renders physiognomy. And it's interesting. I always detected a Mike Mignola influence on Quesada, but he truly has made his own style at this time. And Havoc says, well, let's face it, I know from personal experience that Rain can get a bit frisky. Whatever's going on with her, it's been happening ever since her mind and body were mucked with as a mutate. Maybe we'll find the answers once we get to Genosha. So the callback is to Extinction Agenda and the fact that Rain was subject to the mutate process, not 100%, but enough to cause this damage to her personality and character. And she's been remaining in wolven form or lupine form as much as possible, because in that form she is not the passive mutate. But the risk for her by remaining in the wolfen form is that her hormones are going absolutely crazy. So turn the page. So this is page 16 of the Quesada section of the issue, and it's all politics in Genosha. And what's happening here is that the new president of Genosha seems to have an ulterior agenda, that things haven't changed in Genosha. So she walks away from an African diplomat and the new director of genetics, Sasha Ryan, who's obviously replaced Philip Moreau. And she walks away from them all. Maureen McTaggart is there too. If you'll excuse me, I have work to do. It's Sasha Ryan walks away, the new director of genetics. She walks away into this laboratory and she says, soon, very soon, everything will be ready and the mutate problem will be solved permanently. So what is this? Is this a machine that the mutates can go into and be restored to their original humanity and freedom? And will that benefit Rain? Or is there something more sinister going on? And then here we go. This is the second chapter, Time Out. We've got Peter David still as writer, but we've got a different penciler, Chris Batista, inks by Andrew Pepoy, letters by Lois Buhalis, and colours again by Ariane Lenshock, I think is her surname. So here we go. Why was Quicksilver not involved in the first chapter? It's because he has requested a leave of absence. So Val says to him, how can I pass this up? Sure, Pietro, what's on your mind? When he comes into her office. So interesting body language, his hands behind his back. He says, I'd like some time off. Not too long, a week perhaps at most. So Val is amused. Okay, what's the gag? What's with the Mr. Nice attitude? I keep waiting for something to explode. And he replies, I'm practicing the art of communicating with as little condescension as I can. It's a skill I might require. You see, my wife Crystal has contacted me. She's interested in what did she call it? A getaway. So this is all coming after the interview with Leonard Sampson. So Quicksilver maybe having taken away something from that therapy session with Samson. And Val here is intrigued. She says, sounds like she just knocked over a bank. And he says she's broaching the possibility of a reconciliation. We've been talking regularly, and it seems something worth exploring. She has some free time at the moment, and in our line of work, one never knows. So Val says, look, we're on alert right now, Pietro. As soon as the expatriates turn up, and Pietro starts losing patience, he says, well, there will always be something, won't there? Always some excuse to. So he's about to storm off, and she calls him back. Pietro, go by all means. I'm not telling you to sit here and tell you not to try and save your marriage. In fact, I think I can help. Where are you going for this getaway? So he says, we hadn't really decided. And she says, there's a cabin up in Maine. Its primary function is as a safe house, but at the moment it's deserted. I doubt we'll be using it anytime real soon. So Pietro's delighted. Valerie, this is most generous of you. In comes her assistant Baldric. The expatriates are holed up in a hospital in upstate New York, like we saw in the top story. And Val says, oh, sounds like the kind of thing we could really use you for, Pietro. So he's getting irritated. Too bad you left already, huh? So out he goes. And Val says, assemble the team. And that brings us to the opening story, random violence. But here we continue with Pietro. So he has met up with his wife, Crystal. They were estranged. And here he is racing upstate to Maine. And there's a little bit of banter with them. She can't hear what he's saying because of the rushing wind. So a little bit of realism there. So they're whooshing along the highways and interstates, clocking in at 189 miles per hour. So this state trooper here, he says that was either my imagination or an equipment screw up or some collector zipping around still trying to find one of those Death of Superman comics. So it's 1993, early 93, late 92. And that was the major event in comics, the Death of Superman. So a little kind of topical reference there. And Pietro whizzes by this little shop here that's selling fishing tackle, milk, cheese, guns and ammo. Look at the little guy sitting out front in the rocking chair. Remember him? He'll pop up again at the end of this chapter. So he's whizzes by him. And there's the cabin in Maine that Val gave them the key to. And Quicksilver here carries her over the threshold. I was wondering if you'd be romantic enough to carry me in. She says to him, either that or stand in the doorway all day, he says. And so here we see them getting cozy. He charmingly asks her, is there anything else Her Highness requires? By Aegon, she exclaims, you're actually starting to develop a sense of humor. That's what happens from joining a mutant group without the word evil in it. So that's a reference back to the fact that he was one of the original members of Magneto's Brotherhood of Evil Mutants before he and his sister moved over to the Avengers, all the way back in 1964, Avengers number 16, by Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. So out he goes, and he anticipates what she was about to say about firewood for the fireplace. Look how he karate chops the logs in two, and then he makes the fire. And is sitting down at the bearskin rug all in a few seconds. So then they're nice and cozy there. They've got a bottle of wine. The fire is blazing, and it gets down to it. So where do we go from here, Pietro? She asks him. Luna misses you. That's their daughter. And I her, he says. And do you miss me? No, not at all, he says. Same here. Turn the page. And then things get hot, things heat up, and Crystal simply says, this is the part we never had arguments over, but Pietro, please, for once, slow down. So this is good stuff from Peter David, Again, like any 10, 11-year-old mightn't 100% get what was going on here, but if you were an older teenager, you know exactly what was going on here. So kind of a touch risque for a Comics Code approved comic, but it's admirable that Peter David gets in an adult, quote unquote adult situation like this between this married couple. It's something more than one ever got, back in the 60s, in the original Stanley and Jack Kirby era. But remember the guy in the rocking chair? He's listening in on everything. So that's kind of pervy too. He's going to hear what goes on between the pair of them, and he calls into someone else. Yeah, they're up there, all right. Time to put the operation into effect. And then it looks like he continues listening to them, enjoying themselves in the cabin while he's rocking back and forth in his rocking chair. That's a hell of an ending by Peter David, really is. And then we've got one page of letters there, kind of like the editorial there talking about the possibility of a Guido limited series. That didn't happen, right? And then the statement of ownership with the numbers. So the average number of copies printed over the previous year, 546,000. Actual number of copies of the single issue nearest the filing date, 442,000. So that high number must include the launch issue 71 and maybe one of the Executioner's Songs issues, like maybe 84 as well, in order to pump up those numbers. But very healthy numbers on X Factor at the time. And there you go. I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on X Factor number 88. Let me know your thoughts on this one, the one that introduces Random as a new character. And if you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like and share the video. It really does help the channel. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.